Are you? Is it going to fall off if you speak?
Yeah, pretty much. No, it's all right for now. We'll see how long it lasts.
What's it stuck on with?
It's stuck. It's self-adhesive stuff anyway.
Or like glue?
No, it's got like sticky back.
Oh, like Velcro.
No, it's like self-adhesive. It's like sticky black plastic. I peeled off the back and stuck it on.
Oh, right, okay.
I'm trying not to laugh because this thing will fall off, and then I'll spend for the recording going like this, like I did with the other beard.
It's called Talking About, dear.
Always got cocky tonight.
Oh, I'm impressed that he's realised what it's called after all this time. Hello and welcome to Talking About. We are on season 9, part 2 of 3. See, I can do all the hands. I am Paul P-Bal. Like us, subscribe to us, notify, because you never know if we do like a secret, exciting midweek thing. It'll come up. Just when you're watching Emmerdale, it'll be like, bam, there we are. So yeah, I'm Paul P-Bal. Did that. I'm joined by.
Hello, it's James.
And hello, it's Jason.
It's been lovely talking to you both.
I wondered when you were going to take the camera back from me then.
Oh, Jason, you know it's not possible. I think we've got a Roger Delgado that keeps it on there.
It's the beard again.
Do you mean that's not real?
I could say I've come as Roger Delgado, but I don't think I'm going to get away with it somehow.
I don't know. James's beard looks more convincing, darling.
That's rude. Rude, I tell you.
Anyway, we've done 2 stories so far, and those 2 stories are Doctor Who and the Day of the Daleks and Doctor Who and the Curse of Paladin. Our current season leader is Curse of Paladin on 26.5, and Day of the Daleks is just behind it on 24, but there are 3 more stories to go. Is one of those going to be our season leader? Winner. First today is the Sea Devils. Oh, and James is falling apart already. Not in the same way that Jason has.
Oh, no.
It's
Jason,
right.
you start this one.
Would you like me to start this one? Is that because you're having a little wardrobe malfunction there? Okay, I'll make a start on this one then, if you like.
I'll pretend to be Emmett from Keeping Up Appearances or something, or Donald Sumter.
I'll buy you the time needed there, James. Don't you worry. I've got it covered here.
Well, go on then, introduce it.
It's not a summary though, is it? Okay. So the Master is in prison on the South Coast. And we've got a story full of naval hardware throughout here as the Doctor and Jo face some devilish sea devils. This is a great story. It's one of the highlights of this season for me. And I think it's just because of the epicness of the scale of the story this time round. And, you know, quite by accident or quite by luck or however they managed it, the BBC managed to get some real big help from the Royal Navy here in this story. And it just adds a certain authenticity to a story set on the South Coast with sea monsters attacking to try and take over the world, essentially. And of course, you can throw the Master in for good measure because you know he's not going to be sat in his prison cell just idling his time away watching the clangers. Or is he? Yeah, great story. I like this one. I think this is a definite highlight of the season for me.
Do you like the script?
I have avoided using the word script at this stage.
Oh, hello.
The Master is back.
I know. I feel, oh, this is not going to work today, sadly. There we go. Yeah.
It's got shades of Carnival of Monsters at the end with Peter Halliday's wigs going for it, hasn't it?
Yeah, okay. Take it off. It's too warm. It's not going to stay on. The Sea Devils. I love this story. You're right. The Navy were quite sort of ready to sort of help with this because of the publicity. A lot of the naval officers appeared as extras. They gave their footage for free as well. The stock footage they didn't charge the BBC for, because they felt that it was really good promotion for the Navy. So it does benefit from that. And you've got the Havoc crew as well in this one, which is their last one as well. It's the last full sort of Havoc support. So you get lots of extras, lots of big battle scenes, and it's quite an epic story.
You can always spot the stunt Sea Devil though, can't you? Because when they're shot, some of them fall down, some of them somersault, and it's kind of like, I know which one's the stunt man.
Stuart Fell does this wonderful sort of flip, doesn't he? It's just like, he's the tiniest, he's the smallest guy as well.
He's the tiniest Sea Devil. It's unbelievable.
But he also does a Katy Manning, doesn't he? He does Joe. He's a bum, isn't he? When she's climbing down and when she's climbing up.
He does a bottom wiggle, doesn't he? As he's going up the ladder in Katie's outfit. It's quite. It gets his money's worth, doesn't it? You get these two memorable moments, at least in this one, as stunt person.
He always seems to be quite energetic whenever that particular Sea Devil dies throughout the story, as he does a couple of times.
Yeah, it's
It's an echoes like sonar. There's some kind of mischievous something around tonight, and I don't know what it is. Or what you two have been drinking.
I have got coffee here. That's all I've got.
I have Pepsi.
I think you've been on the Co-op Orange or something. There's something unusual going on here. I'll find out what it is. I'll find out.
You'll wheedle it out of us.
Yes. I do love. I should have written a line down. That would have been terribly helpful. But there's that great moment when Doctor Who and Jo Grant are sat on the fort talking about the Sea Devils, and she goes, "Isn't that a group of reptiles that were extinct millions of years ago?" This is a really long exposition line that I think she delivers it incredibly. It's like, you have literally just backstoried in one line that this is a sort of link to the Silurians. The Brigadier was telling me about it. Then he talked about the one with the ambassadors, and then he's talking about the one with the Primords. Oh my God, he goes on, the Brigadier does.
Then doesn't the Doctor say they're actually Eocenes, is it?
Eocenes, yeah. Which is also wrong, isn't it?
Which is also wrong, because it's in the wrong era. But it's because I think we talked in a previous recording that they end up just being branded as Sea Devils. They even call themselves Sea Devils later on. It's just like, yeah, let's give up on trying to work out what era they actually came from. Just call them Sea Devils.
But isn't it Declan Mulholland on the rig who says Sea Devils? And he's named them, and then all of a sudden, the whole entirety of their history are now Sea Devils. And that's like, unless they introduced themselves when they were about to kill him and went, "We will kill you. I am a Sea Devil."
So were they essentially Sea Silurians then?
They're cousins, aren't they? Cousins of the Silurians, I believe. That's the...
Not nephews or nieces or anything like that?
No.
He's been on the Co-op Orange. He's not normally either this animated or this cheeky. I don't know what's happened.
I've drunk a little too much coffee, I feel, today. It's been one of those days.
Irish coffee.
Without the coffee.
I mean, this has got so many location shots. I mean, the really went to town on this one. You've got in Portsmouth, the Portsmouth Naval Base, No Man's Land Fort, the Isle of Wight, HMS Reclaim, and then you've got, as I say, all the stock footage as well. It's really quite an action piece. You've got the brilliant scene down on the beach where they're weirdly in a minefield on the beach. But then you've got, the sea devils coming out of the sea. You've got, the submarine. And the submarine, it was a model, but the model was so realistic that the MOD actually contacted the BBC to say, where did you get this from? Because they thought it was an actual submarine and there was something to do with it was purely ironic, coincidental, that there was a piece that they'd used from a Hoover or something in the model was the same number as what was on one of their submarines, which is just bizarre.
When it swings out the cave, though, I think they should have realised it wasn't an actual submarine. That's I love the model work in this. I love the submarine dropping to the ocean weather. But when it sort of swings out, when it's trying to get out from firing the missile and up and out, that's just one moment of.
Yeah, it's a bit Stingray, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Doctor Who doesn't have monsters coming out of the water enough, and I think that's something that they've sadly lacked doing in the new one, haven't they? Because Benrick, it's really good when they come out. Full Circle, they come out, because they have the mist and the water. Monsters coming out of water is a good thing. It's a good look. It's quite an iconic punch. Why don't they do it more?
Missed opportunity when we had the Sea Devils back in just the recent series there as well.
Those ones do instead.
They didn't need no climbing out of the water. They flew high.
They jumped from one side of the world to the other.
Gravity defying Sea Devils by that point.
They didn't do front flips though, did they? They hadn't got Stuart Fowle.
No.
I mean, that's. I mean, you had the cry, because there's that, piercing Sea Devil dying cry, but you didn't get the somersaulting death of a Sea Devil, sadly.
No. And the scene on the beach I find quite amusing as well, when they're going through the minefield, because they're carefully there and John's carefully sort of scanning. And then all of a sudden he decides he can actually just zap the mines. We might as well have just done that, just gone zap, 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 and they could have run away. Except they had this whole protracted scene where he's trying to scan for the mines, which I find most amusing.
But you had to have stopped to set them all off and all the shrapnel and stuff coming off them. It probably wouldn't have been terribly safe.
No, I don't think it would have been. It's a very strange little corner of the beach that's mined. I mean, I suppose the prison is that's where the master's incarcerated, isn't it? So I suppose
But wouldn't you have mined the whole beach though, rather than just
that corner? Because
No, you can't mine all of it, because you've left ropes for people to scale the other bit of the cliff. So you're not going to mine that bit, because if you want to climb down the cliff at short notice, there's a couple of very handy reels of rope at the top of the cliff waiting.
I do agree with you, though. It's very epic the way that the Sea Devils do rise up out of the sea and go back into that. I think it's one of those iconic shots, isn't it, that we've gotten used to seeing over the years. And you're right. I think it could certainly have been repeated. But I do love the way when they come up out of the water and you can see the guys, they're shaking their heads to try and clear all the water out from out there between their eyes. So don't look too closely.
But this is all the sort. If you think about all the different Pertwee stories, this has got all of the sort of great elements of a good Pertwee story. You've got, a decent villain. Although I would argue, I think we've had this discussion before, that the Sea Devils aren't necessarily the villains because they were here first. You've got the moral dilemma for the Doctor, which is the same as he had with the Silurians. Is he wants to try and broker peace. You've got the Master, who has a really convoluted plan, who ends up then having to get the Doctor to rescue him because it all goes wrong. You've got the chase sequences, you've got hovercrafts, you've got big battle sequences, all of the all of my favourite elements of Pertwee are in this story, and you get Jon
About the Brigadier, shame on you.
Well,
shame on you.
You can almost imagine that Unit are in there somewhere, but I know that they're not in this story. But it's you've got the figure of authority who's useless, like Mr. Chin. He comes in and says, "Where's my breakfast, love?" This poor sort of secretary just keeps being sent off to go and get him food. And you've got Jon playing the action hero. He goes into the diving bell, and he's got all these sort of sequences. So it's
don't forget the sword fighting. Don't forget
the sword. Well, he injured himself doing the sword fight. But again, even that, I love Pertwee and Delgado together. They're always just the way that they spar off each other, and with Katy as well. But particularly in this one, between the two men, when they do the sword fight, and there's a point where the Doctor actually gives him back his sword. He sort of stops, has a nibble of the sandwich, and then just goes, "Oh, well, let's carry on, shall we?" It's just like, it's like, why have you done that? But I think sometimes that the Doctor doesn't think the Master will actually kill him. He's just like, "Oh, I always get the upper hand. It's here, have your sword back." And moments later, he's throwing a dagger at him. But I love how they replay the whole sword fight again in the recap. It's like you get to see that twice. It's brilliant.
What I love is that it's a maximum security prison that has swords hanging up in the corridor. just in case you fancied a little bit of sword fighting in a maximum security prison, we'll hang them in the corridors next to the fire extinguishers.
He's got a cushy life. He's got a telly, he's got a rowing machine, he's got like shelves of all sorts of knickknacks on them. He's hardly suffering, is he?
I do like have a second television as well. That's what he asked. He's been given everything, isn't he?
But his status, then, it's incredibly sort of, you lose that generationally, don't you? That he says, make sure it's color. Well, in 1972, a color television would have been a very impressive thing to just say, hold a second one. It's interesting because watching Jon and I'm going to be a hater again, just because watching Jon and Roger doing Doctor Who and the Master, and then having recently seen Jodie and Sasha do it, you think, oh my days, I can't even think that these are even worth discussing in the same breath. Jon is so charming and assured, and Roger is charismatic and sort of almost sexy in his sort of his charm. He's charming. He's mad. The Master's mad. He's got strange world domination plans, but he's just charming and humorous and witty, and is all so wonderfully under. He doesn't, even when he has to do the Master laugh, it's not the full and he doesn't have to keep telling people he's mad or he's evil or there's none of this sort of stuff going on. And it's just like, he's so calm. And it's the calm that's the powerful thing, isn't it? His character in this with Trenchard is horrific. He's read the man, and then he destroys the man and throws him aside when he's done with him. It's brutal, but it's all done with such charm.
And it's the menace that's played. There is a menace that is, as you said, underneath the surface of this character, who is, totally in control of what's going on around him. And it's right, Trenchard's picked up, thrown away, as are a number of people through the time when the Master's got his devilish plans. But I don't know, there is just something, you cannot take your eyes off Roger when he's in full pomp as the Master for me.
The scene where he's in the store, where he breaks in to get the electrical equipment, and then the sort of naval officer comes in and he tries to hypnotize him and fails, and you just know that if he can't get his own way, he will just kill or eliminate you, because he can't control you. So he just swiftly dispenses of him with a bit of a with a bit of a chop, and that's what he's like. You just, 1 minute he's all smiles and you will obey me, and like you say, very suave. As soon as that doesn't work, you see that vicious side of him where he's just like, right, you're in my way now.
But he is very much the equal to the Doctor. So, both him and Jon, see, they work well together. The Master is very equal, and you can see that there really isn't anything between them. It is very much good versus evil, and doesn't need to be anything more convoluted than that. It just was it's one of those unique pairings in television that you don't get very often. And sad loss that we lost him early, but trust me, that is a great dynamic they've got going on, particularly in this story.
I just find it incredible that subsequent Masters, I sort of say, okay, Peter Pratt, Geoffrey Beevers is slightly different because they're playing the rotting version. But anything that's come afterwards, Anthony Amiel, that nobody's looked at the quality and the impact that Roger has and why that is. They've all gone down this, the Master's mad, he's mad, he's mad, he's mad. And it's, in my humble opinion, and I know some people out there do like alternative versions, I just find it interesting that nobody's gone, this is why this one is so good, because he's so measured and so calm. And we talked about season 8, and we're going to be talking about season 8 again, but that introduction scene where he, from the start, he's just calm, and he keeps that. Even when he's a prisoner, he's still charming and all that. So it's just...
the only thing I feel, though, in season 8, and we won't talk about it too much, but I think I think the character was probably just a little overused during that. Whereas this season, I think it's nice that he only pops up a couple of times, and I think it almost heightens the rivalry between the two of them in this season, I think.
I love the continuity, though, that he's in prison from the end of the Daemons. That they're just popping in. It's a real sort of continuity tick of like, oh yeah, he was arrested last season, so we're just going to pop in and see how he's doing. You're right. I think the decision was made that he was going to pop up every couple of stories. They wanted more stories where they were off Earth, for example, so they tried to alternate the stories, even though the Doctor hasn't yet got back full control of the TARDIS, is still able to, either be sent by the Time Lords or miraculously they appear on another planet. But they tried to do it where it was one story set on Earth, one story set in space by this point, to try and get that variation. I think you're right. I mean, we will go back to season 8. There's some really great stories in season 8, but there is a sort of, oh, it's the Master again. And this time round, you get a sufficient break. We will see the Master again before the end of the season. But, I think he's used to really good effect in this story.
It's an interesting moral question, isn't it, as well? Because TV's Doctor Who says to him that there were calls to have you executed after your last, endeavour. And the implication is the Doctor has stepped in to prevent him from being executed for his crimes and all that stuff, which is a direct result then, means anyone that dies in this and the sort of awfulness that sort of results in the Master's action, are they because Doctor Who's too soft to say, actually, he is a bad guy, he's beyond, it's a moral compass. But, just on a rewind on plot point, why are the Sea Devils sinking ships at the start?
Is it because they are going near to their base? They're trying to protect where they are? Because there's only a few of them, isn't there? Because the Master is working on a way of fixing their hibernation control. So a few of them have woken up. I think it's because they feel threatened by...
He's only SOS. He's only had a couple of Morse communications with them, hasn't he? He hasn't had a full IP chat, has he? He's just been in their DMs.
No, he's noticed the ships going missing as well. So
does that not draw attention to themselves if they haven't fully revived and they're a little bit understaffed? It's popping up to the surface and sinking a few ships that aren't anywhere near you.
Yeah, was going to say, I think it's a little bit attention seeking, if I'm honest.
The work on the No Man's Fault thing is it's meant to disturb them and woken them up, which I can understand. I can understand that, but I don't know why that then means they go out sinking ships, because it's multiple ships, because they mentioned several times that a lot of ships have gone missing in the area. But if the ships haven't gone out, do you know what I mean? It's a bit of a...
Yeah. I mean, I don't know whether... I mean, I've not read the novelisation. I don't know whether there's a deeper plot that they were trying to get parts to fix the things themselves, or what that was. I would imagine it is just more they felt threatened by the activity that was going on around them. But they were right next to a naval base, to be fair.
Yeah, their geography wasn't hot. I mean, the opening scene of this is very similar to the opening scene of Doctor Who and the Terror of the Zygons, isn't it? They're almost, you know, I mean, a Zygon doesn't come on board and kill the guy in Terror of the... It's very similar sort of start. Again, Doctor Who at the Seaside, we don't get much Doctor Who at the Seaside, do we? And it's an odd one that we don't, as a thing, because it's a good thing to shoot, isn't it? It always looks great when things are coastal and you've got the sea, isn't it? It's a bit village or whatever. I find it odd that that's not a setting that's used more often.
And these were definitive Sea Devils as well, by the way. I mean, you know, we've seen several incarnations of them since, but, you know, these are what I would call proper Sea Devils. And it's quite a quirk in how the costume came together as well. They weren't originally going to have any costume at all other than just the monster costume, which I find most amusing, that they would be naked Sea Devils running around on the beach.
Then
you can't see their tinkles though, can you? So
no. Jason's like this going, no, you can't.
Michael Bryant apparently vetoed it straight away as soon as he realised he thought it was going to happen.
Then the idea
tinkles. What interviews have you been reading? Michael Bryant said, "I will not have Sea Devil tinkles in my story."
That's apparently what he said. I remember watching it, the behind the scenes, the documentary that's on the DVD, and he says it there.
He specifically says he didn't want to see Sea Devil.
Well, no, he doesn't obviously use that word. He's too much of a gentleman.
What word does he use, Jason Clifford?
I can't remember what word he used. I'm just generalising. I've just told a little anecdote there. Doesn't need much more explanation than that.
I think he's making anecdotes up here. Michael Bryant banned Sea Devil winky woos. He thought a string vest will hide everything.
It's the truth. It says it. He says it in the documentary.
So he learned the script for Day of the Daleks. He's learned Michael Bryant's interview for this. He's researching, folks.
Hey, it's only taken 2 years.
Oh, that's rude.
He's taken 2 years to learn the script for Day of the Daleks. That's what you've been building up for that moment.
I like this season.
That's why we left it for last.
I think I think I might have said this in the Legend of the Sea Devils thing, but my absolute favourite Sea Devil is the leader Sea Devil who goes, "What's been happening?" I love him. I don't know why. Every time he comes into the electrical store, doesn't he? He's like, "What's been happening?" Just wants the gossip, a cup of tea, and like, wow, you'll never guess what that Wren's been doing.
I was going to say, you should speak to what's her name? Is it Captain Hart?
Captain Hart.
Who's the lady like the
Drew Murphy?
Yeah. She's like on the phone. Almost every scene, she's on the phone having a gossip with someone first, and then someone walks in and goes, "Get me some tea," and she's like, "Oh, I'll have to call you later."
All I'm gonna, I'll do. Look, let's go for convention anecdote mode here. Okay, when we did, it was the first Phantom event. Our first solo event was a Fury from the Deep reunion, because June's in Fury from the Deep as well. And being a young and excitable person at that point, I had a photo with June, and I insisted that we had it with a telephone. So I've got a picture of me and June with the telephone. She's got the telephone, and it's the.
Because brilliant.
She does a lot of telephone acting, doesn't she?
Always a shot of her on the phone with someone walking in behind her because her desk is right by the door, and like the doctor will walk in, or the minister will walk in, and she goes, "Oh, I've got to go." It's
like, oh, Sea Devil invasion again. Call you back, Bev.
I just imagine she's on the phone to the lead Sea Devil. What's happening? Well, let me tell you.
She does really well with actually quite a sort of slight part in it because she's actually quite saucy, isn't she? She's got a little bit of a look, I think. And there's I love that little bit, and it's a bit of business which I suspect isn't in the script and is in the rehearsal, and like where TV's Doctor Who has the plate of sandwiches, he takes them off Joe and eats them and gives June one, and then leaves it. That smacks of a bit of rehearsal business rather than scripting. But yeah, June I think is a cheeky little performance. I love it.
It's the wry look she gives the minister when he comes in and says, where's my I want my breakfast and my tea and my toast, and she just rolls her eyes, just go, all right.
I like that when Jason turns up an event, to be brutally frank.
Oh, I can't believe you said that.
Demanding breakfast. Or in a string vest.
String vest to cover his winky woo while he goes looking for someone.
Coming soon. Jason doing an interview in a string vest.
Oh, that'll get the crowds in.
And Michael Bryan going, do you know what? We said to put those on to cover the Sea Devil winky woos. Anyway, back to Doctor Who and the year scenes. This is quite a sprightly one for Jo. Jo's a bit more. She's a bit more action girl in this, isn't she? And she does her Hong Kong Fooey judo chops, doesn't she? That knock people out, and down they go, and all that sort of stuff. But she's climbing in a white trouser suit, which doesn't get dirty, but she climbs through a lot of ventilation shafts and stuff, doesn't she? And
it's always when they're either having to crawl down things or through things, or in a quarry, that they give them white trousers to wear, and you just think, nah, that'd be dirty in seconds. But yeah, she rescues the Doctor at one point, doesn't she? She sort of breaks in and saves him, and I think we talked about this in the last recording. The relationship between Jo and the Doctor at this point is just sublime. He trusts her. He's not, he goes off, he does his own thing. She does her own thing. She's not one to sort of sit down and wait and, see what's happening to the Doctor. She throws herself into it, like you say, and,
Yeah, no, she jumps off on a motorcycle and goes off chasing him around because she doesn't know quite where he is, or he's at the Navy base. She needs to get over there. She's definitely in the forefront of the action, particularly in this story. And you're right, she's watching out for him just as much as I think he watches out for her. And I think that's what makes the great dynamic between this Doctor companion relationship that you've got that's now generated in the series. More so than the companion just relying on the Doctor all the time. It just makes, again, it's that whole way that they play the two parts together. So when you've actually got scenes with the Doctor, Jo, and the Master all together, those scenes are played so well because you've got three standout actors on screen at that stage.
You have the magic of I can pilot a hovercraft. I've just not mentioned it before. It's like, oh yeah, she knows how to do the hovercraft. And obviously, I would not trust Katy Manning to drive a hovercraft. It has to be said, but Jo Grant can do it, so that's all right.
Although I think, go on. I was going to say you tell the story because you've got. I was going to tell the same story, which is she had quite the ride there. It's fair to say, with quite a number of the sailors falling on her when the hovercraft somewhat careers up the beach on a slight angle.
She hated it. She hated every moment of that.
I bet she loved it.
She was also, she was batting off seamen everywhere.
I'd have batted the hovercraft a little bit more if it were me.
Oh, Jason, you've been on the beach with a somersaulting sea devil wondering why it gone green. Anyway, also, whilst we're on Katy, it is another one of the outfits that she's not so keen on because she thinks she looks like a British Rail food server when they used to have servers on the trains.
Mm.
Packed. Great guest cast though aside, haven't we? Got Edwin Richfield.
Yeah. You've got Donald Sumpter, who would go on to be a number of different roles.
He's already been in the Wheel in Space, lovey, hasn't he?
Right, yeah.
Enrico.
Yeah. It's all of the cast do you know, I can't think of anyone in this story that is a complete, I was going to say clanger, but there are actual clangers. You know, that is a complete standout from everybody else, because they're all really up there. Even the the guy that comes in from the ministry, you know, normally that's the kind of character I just, you know, he is toe curlingly annoying, but then he's supposed to be, and you always get that wonderful payoff when Jon comes up again, you know, when the Doctor comes up against someone like that, you just know is just going to go, yeah, I'm going to, you know, wipe the floor with you because you're not really worth my time. And so even though that character is quite horrible and, you know, misogynistic and everything, it's not, you know, it's not out of character. It's very much of its time.
I like his little business. Do you like his little business when the Sea Devil disorientated and he goes to go past him and then he goes back in? So it's just a bit too risky. But that again, even within just that little bit of comedy business, that's quite a nice piece of character, because you understand who they are, what sort of person they are, and we sort of discussed this on a few stories now. I think you've got a measure of most people in this as to where they're at and what they're at, and you care about them, you know.
Yeah.
Even though he's
the character of Trenchard, I think, particularly for me, played wonderfully. But you feel really sorry for the character. The character's done everything through the story for the best of intentions. There isn't anything particularly, there's no malice there. There's no, you know, you know, Trenchard doesn't want to take over the world. He just wants to do the right thing. That stiff upper lip, that sort of, you know, that British resolve. And then when he gets cast away at the end, you genuinely feel really sorry for the character. And it comes back to it again, because we talked about this many times, you know, even in a 6-part like this that's got so much action, because this is an action-built story, there's so much going on, but you've still got time to understand the characters and get that character development in throughout. And there's no one trying to outplay the other. It just all works on just a really good level. Yeah,
I mean, you get, I think there's like just a couple of lines of dialogue where they explain his backstory about how he wasn't he like a governor of a
colony. And they say he declared independence pretty soon afterwards.
Yeah, you know, he was like sent there, and then they just went, no, we're going independent. So you get, you know, and it's only almost like a throwaway comment, but you're right. What you get in some of these stories, particularly in the Pertwee era, is characterization immediately. You know, you immediately, you care. You know, even though he's a bumbling fool and he's being manipulated and he, you know, he's probably well out of his depth, you care about him when he's, you know, like you say, when he's discarded, once his usefulness is over, you know. And even when the Doctor's playing golf in his office, you know, and he just like does it in one and then just looks at him and just goes, yeah.
Blindfolded, isn't he, as well? It's even worse.
It's like, again, just in that tiny scene, you're saying, this guy's a loser. You know, he's just going to be completely outplayed by everybody else around him. But you do genuinely care about him. You know, it's just like, that's quite sad that he's had this life that hasn't really gone the way that he wanted, and then he was used by the Master and then got killed.
What's the good news on Trenchard? What's the good news? Yeah, it's as well. It's a measure of the performance as well that doesn't fall into, you know, easy to play that badly. We mentioned the clangers. I think it's quite remarkable that Roger can play that and not lose any he doesn't lose any of his what's it, because it's quite difficult, isn't it? Because the joke is, I quite like, and not everyone will like the joke. I like the joke that he's watching the clangers and thinks that they could be. Imagine if the clangers had turned up as an actual recurring. No, anyway. Perhaps they have on Big Finish.
That's a big finish waiting to happen, isn't it? Attack of the clangers.
Could you imagine River Song and the Fourth Doctor encountered the clangers with the Wirren?
Room for it in the new series yet? You know, we got Beat the Meat there. Could happen.
So, yeah, I think it's quite clever that he gets away with that. And am I right in that? Look, I don't want to steal facts here. If this is going to be a fact.
Go on.
Is this one of the rare where we get the full reverse the polarities?
Yeah, so there's only 2 times he actually says the.
Oh, 2 times.
Full thing.
Oh no, you went, my lovey. You went.
He's back. Are you back?
Oh, sorry. Hello. Sorry. No, it was two times. It's this and in the 5 Doctors that he says it. The full version.
The 12-inch, not the radio edit.
That's the one.
So, and we haven't mentioned Emmett from Keeping Up Appearances. He doesn't say the Sea Devil's going to sing at him. That's
but even the stuff on the submarine is again, you know, you could say it's a 6-parter, and often we talk about 6-parters being a bit flabby, and we may be talking about 6-parters shortly. But in this, every episode is great. You know, I can't think of anything that I would say cut it out. I mean, even the submarine and the characters on that and the predicament they're in, and you know how they get out of it. It's just enjoyable. It's just, again, you've got characters that you care about, even though they're not in it for that, you know, for that length of time.
There's a lot of atmos as well on the submarine stuff, and when there's the Sea Devils are being used here on the, you know, there's a lot of all the stuff on the fort as well. It's some atmosphere, and I think they are quite. I think you see the Sea Devils. Maybe you see the Sea Devils a little too soon, like because you see the hand a few bits, but the bit where John sees I think it's Pat Gorman doing that Sea Devil, the first one.
Yeah,
he's in quite early doors, and I think did that need to be held back a bit? I don't know. His poor old feet when he turns to go up the stairs, though. I think that's a miracle. I mean, that's some hazard acting.
And how are we feeling about the incidental music adding to the atmosphere in this story? Then
I love it. I mean, I know that because there were budget. I mean, because of everything else, there were budget constraints. So they went to BBC Radiophonic and just said, "Could you do could you do all of this?" But I actually think that that sort of really, when every time that Sea Devil appeared or you saw a Sea Devil hand, you had that sort of like that noise. But I think every time I hear that, I think of this episode. I don't think of any of the other sort of subsequent ones. I think of this episode. I think of this, you know, these Sea Devils in particular. And I think it works really well. I know some people aren't that keen on it, but it was recognised when they did the BBC at the Proms, that Doctor Who at the Proms, they did play an excerpt from this as one of the classic tracks from Doctor Who. So I think it does get its recognition, although it's not necessarily to everybody's taste.
Yeah, I think it's different. There are parts of it where I think I'm not sure it's quite matching the tension. But I do think there are parts like the Sea Devil, that's very iconic, and it resonates with the imagery. I think on the whole, I think it does work. Because Michael Lee wasn't adverse to trying outside the. I don't know. Was it budget restraint, or was it Michael Lee wanting something different? Because he obviously uses Carey Blyton, doesn't he, for Death, the Daleks and Revenge. So I don't know whether it's a question of Michael wanting something that's not Dudley. Because I can't think that the BBC, getting a composer from the Radiophonic would be much cheaper than Dudley doing it every week.
There was an interview where he said he did save money from doing it.
Is this the same interview where he said he wanted to put a string vest on the Sea Devils to cover up their winky woos? Because I think this might not be. Is this an Adrian Wrigglesford interview? I'm not sure this is stacking up.
all those fact checkers out there going, oh yeah.
Well, I didn't go to the dark web for these ones, James, so you're okay.
You can't get on the dark web on the dial-up at the library. They don't let him.
They've stopped him.
Yeah. So do you have any exotic facts on Doctor Who and the years?
We talked about the clanger scene. So the clanger scene wasn't in it originally. That was added in at the last minute because they were short. One of the episodes was short. So that wonderful scene that we've just been talking about was pretty much made up on the spot. They were like, we're sort of 60 seconds short on this episode. So they filmed that scene. And I think it is done really, really well. We've talked about the music or something else I was going to mention. So Pertwee actually bruised his ribs in the sword fight where he hit the table. He did actually injure himself during that. There was supposed to be another scene where the Doctor was water skiing. That one was dropped though because the weather was dreadful and they couldn't film it. So it was another sort of Pertwee going, wouldn't it be great if at this point I was water skiing? And they were like, okay, John, but the weather was too bad and they couldn't film it. So then
he used the water ski his holiday home in Ibiza, didn't he, I think?
Yeah.
You get the jet ski, don't you? The jet skis, obviously, Mr. Pertwee going, let's have the jet skis in this.
Yeah. So, Mr. Action Man.
With the stuntman playing Roger, who's headed down all the way
through
and all the way coming back in. So it's trying to hide the fact that they didn't put a beard on the stuntman.
What I also love about the Master is he's always got a spare rubber mask of himself just in case he needs it. I like that. That's preparation, that is.
It is, we talked about other Master stories where you think he's dead at the end and, 2 stories only pops up. But there is that wonderful thing about Delgado where he's got away. It's always they carry him off and they're like, oh, he's had a heart attack, and then you suddenly look and he's got a plastic face and you're like, you didn't notice that when you were carrying him off the grass. It's a bit like that in the Autumn one as well, isn't it? It's just like, oh, it's a fake. But I do love his ingenious ability to produce a mask.
So, do we have scores on the doors for Doctor Who and the Cedar?
Ooh. Shall I go? It's a really, really simple one for me because this is Doctor Who perfection for me. So it is a 10.
Because of the framing, I thought it was an 8.
My flippers out. It is a 10.
What's he been scoring?
Absolutely stone cold classic. Love it.
Jason Clifford's thinking now. He's like, I can't add half onto that.
Well, we determined in the previous season that we could go as low as 0, but there's no need to be going as low as 0 here by any means. And I am 100% on the same page as James here. This is without doubt an out-and-out Jon Pertwee classic story. And they don't get much better than this because you have got absolutely everything rolled up into one story. The only tiny negative is I probably would have wanted Unit in there as well, just to really bolster it up. But we have plenty of Royal Navy in there to more than make up for the fact that we didn't have the Brig, Mike, and Sergeant Benton there to keep us company. The Sea Devils, I think, are a great next step for the whole sort of Silurians characters. And I just think placing it in where they did, down on the coast, and giving it that proper sort of English feel, it's just delivering everything you want in a Doctor Who story. And I am also, not unsurprisingly, going to be dropping this with a 10.
I thought you were going to say it's not perfect because it hasn't got you yet, but I gave it.
Because he did that with Case. It's not perfect, but it's 10.
No, this is a proper
might be like
10.
a perfect score. I don't know. Oh, he's got his little huff now. I'm going to do a Jason level of summation now for my scoring. I just crave the indulgence just for one moment here, folks. Because I mentioned, I think, back in the day when we did season 5, that the Mind Robber Part 5 was like the Mama said, go and watch this, watch this because I haven't gone out to play. So this was the one which came on the week after on BBC Two. And this is what hooked me as a little, I was 10 when this went out. Not originally on BBC Two. So this is what hooked me. So and bizarrely, it's one of those. I mean, this is back in the day where you'd have to set a video recorder if you weren't in. So we went on holiday, and I had to set a video recorder to make sure that I caught the episode and all that business. We went on holiday to Weymouth, which is actually not a dissimilar sort of location to this. So I suppose I sort of in my head that's all kind of merges. So yes, the thing is, I'm going all around the bushes to say this here, is that were it not for the fact that as a little 10-year-old mini-me that this had captured my imagination and brought me into this, I mean, I wouldn't be recording this now. There would be no this, there would be no, I wouldn't be doing, I wouldn't have met the love of my life and all that stuff. And Dexter. So getting back from the Oscar speech, it is quite an important story to me. So obviously, and I do love it. So I have also given it, James is 8, 10. So it's got 30.
Well
It deserves
deserved.
it absolutely deserves it.
So
No
good.
question.
Which means we've got a new season leader, but can anything else beat it? We've got another story to look at today, and that story is the Mutants. So, does anyone want to introduce the Mutants?
Imagine if you'd seen this story first.
Literally, I was thinking that when I was watching these back, I was thinking actually how amazing that the Sea Devils captured my imagination, and it was so entrancing, so well told, and so well performed. And then I was watching this one, I was like, crikey, could you imagine if BBC Two had been like, Mutants, let's go with Mutants? I'd have been back outside playing with my mates, and none of this would have happened. Sorry, who's got an introduction?
I would start as Jason very kindly took the mantle when my beard fell off on the last one, so I'll carry on. Sent by the Time Lords to deliver a package, the Doctor and Joe find themselves at the hands of the merciless Marshal. This story, I mean, so firstly, the Time Lords, who I've sent them off world. So I've sent them in the TARDIS on a trip to deliver a parcel that can only be opened by the person that it is meant for. So you have this huge, great big thing, which, they spend quite a bit of time trying to break into to find out what's in it. And then when you do find out what's in it, you're still not much the wiser, because you're looking at 4 tablets going, what's all this about? Even the person who was supposed to have it was like, I don't understand any of this. So they end up in this sort of sky platform orbiting an occupied world. They're about to, the Earth Empire is contracting. They're about to pull out and give them back control of their planet. The Marshal is this really insane and awful character who has decided that he doesn't want to give up control of this planet. He's got another idea. He's decided that he can fix the atmosphere so that humans can live on it, because at the moment they can't, so it's kind of pointless really owning it. The only thing that really was the sort of mining that they were doing on the planet. So he orchestrates an assassination of Jeffrey Palmer, Jeffrey Palmer really doesn't get sort of great roles in Doctor Who, does he? He's always killed off. I mean, he was the plague carrier for the Silurian story. Here he's assassinated, and then when he comes back years later, is killed off again. So it's bless him. So he is assassinated, and then you have to sort of sit through a very ploddy story where they're trying to work out what's going on with the Mutts. Anyone want to take over at this point, or do you want me to carry
Well,
on?
I was just going to add, we're a bit down to earth with a bump after the Sea Devils with this one, and whilst this isn't by any stretch the worst Doctor Who story I've ever watched, it's certainly not going to be sitting up there as a classic. And I think this is a great example of where a story is literally being stretched out to make 6 episodes, because this really is quite, as you've said, James, it's quite ploddy, and it's a great premise. You start off. I like the fact that the Doctor and Jo are being almost used by the Time Lords to go and do these little errands and these little trips out to help other societies. And I like that. It's a great setup. The premise of the story is good. You get to the Sky Base, and there's obviously something not quite right here. You're in the middle of some warring factions that aren't quite happy with what the Marshal's doing on the planet, and so on and so forth. But it's at this point the story sort of starts to unravel a little bit and doesn't keep a consistent narrative, and it just loses its way. And I'll be honest, I find some of the referencing in here quite uncomfortable. It's obviously based heavily around the sort of colonial era of Earth, and some of the references used and some of the casting choices for me don't quite work in this one. So it misses on a couple of scales. It's okay. I mean, the Doctor and Jo, they're great again throughout. There are a couple of strongish sort of guest roles, but the story's missing a little something. It's missing that whatever the Sea Devils had, this doesn't have, and therefore becomes a slight disappointment.
I think I've said a few times on this, I think Bob and Dave are a bit of a mystery to me, that people say how great someone like their script for Underworld. It's a bit of a mystery to me, because I think they have more misses than hits. I really do. I think there's a lot of really, this is turgid. I think that's the only way I'm going to describe the Mutants, is it's turgid. It's one of those stories, and I've got the stick now. It's one of those stories that in how many years now? So it's been 20 odd years of 30 years of Doctor Whoing. I've seen it, and when I watched this the other day, I still couldn't really remember. I could remember seeing it, and I've seen it on DVD, on VHS, on UK Gold, and I've seen it. But again, now I've watched it, and I've watched it like 2 days ago. Whatever. I've seen it, and it's almost like, tell me about the Mutants. I'm still like, God, it's like I've chewed wallpaper paste and tried to regurgitate it. I don't. It's going in, and then you'll sort of go comatose, and then it comes out again, and I don't get it. It's so badly done, and it shouldn't be, because this is such a. We've had 3 great stories. The score's the same. We've had 3 great stories. It's Barry and it's Terence. It's Bob and Dave who've got the experience. And 3 Doctors coming up for them is a great story. Terence and Barry. It's Jon and Katy. There's kind of like, you've got absolutely everything you should have here to make this magical. And you're still looking at your watch going, oh, that's episode 2. Okay. just the 4 to go.
Yeah, it does feel like that. In my head, I feel like some of the episodes are almost identical, as in like the Doctor gets captured and then the Doctor escapes and then the Doctor gets captured again, and then Jo gets captured and then Marshall sort of wheels her out and says, oh, she's here and do what I say, and then she gets escapes and then captured again. It feels like that. You know, some of the 6-parters feel like a 4-parter and a 2-parter. You get some sort of shift in the middle of it, and you think, oh, okay, we're now moved into a slightly different part of the story. This doesn't really do that. It's still plodding along. I mean, the story, in essence, is that there are the sort of circle around the sun takes 2,000 years, so the seasons are 500 years long. It's a bit like you just mentioned it. You know, the one with Adric, Full Circle. It's a bit like that in the fact that they evolve. These people evolve because of the seasons. They have to evolve. The Marshals sort of tinkering with the atmosphere has caused them to prematurely evolve into mutts, but the mutts are what they need to survive the next 500 years season. And I can see even explaining this is sending you both to sleep, but that's essentially it. But the fact that it takes 6 episodes to get to that point, you know, even when they've got the 4 tablets which represent the 4 seasons, and you know, to be fair, the Doctor and Joe are pretty bad deliverers. It takes them so long to find the right person. You know, I'm surprised they didn't just lob it over a fence and go, yeah, I've posted it. But it's the character of the Marshal, and to be fair to Paul Whitson-James, he plays it really to the wire. You know, we talk about sometimes about villains, and you know, it's like go big or go home, and he goes big. His character is loathsome, you know, who every opportunity he sees to try and get, you know, to cling on to power, even when the people from Earth turn up, and he's blackmailing the Doctor because he's got Joe as a hostage, and then, you know, the Mutt arrives, and so he's like, oh, see, this is what I said all along, and this is why you should keep me here. Even though he's on the brink of losing his power, he somehow manages to manipulate things, you know, to twist things back. So I think as a character, he plays it really well. But I don't know. There's not that many good characters around him. You know, he pretty much uses and kills off everybody. He is quite brutal, you know, in what he does. But it just, I don't know, somehow doesn't just quite sit right with everything else that's going on. It's almost like there's too much going on. If it was just him clinging on to power.
There's not too much going on in this story. Trust me, James.
Well, there's
really not.
There's a lot of sort of prevarication over the Mutts and where they come from, and them trying to change the atmosphere. It could be a 4-parter, you know, with that storyline. It doesn't need to be 6. It's, and even if it was 4, it'd still be a bit of a step down from what we'd just been reviewing.
There are some bad performances. James Mellor's bad as, I am Varan, I am the leader of my people and the warrior with a wig, which we can reuse next week in the Time Monster. There's Rick James is terrible, isn't he? It's like he's just read the script and he's doing it just like memory, sort of like 30 seconds later. There are some bad performances of a bad script here as well, and I think that doesn't help anything along here. And so the Whitson-Jones character then is heightened, but there's nothing on a parity with it. I think Eric Hagan's very good in this. I think he's doing dynamic young lead in this, but again, he hasn't really got the material to go with, because he has got the part there and he does it well and that, but I don't think it's written well enough. I mean, ordinarily he'd be a love interest for Joe, wouldn't he? But he doesn't even get that.
And this is where you talk about the character of the Marshal, and you're right. There's really nothing else that's standing out around that actor. So the actor's really playing the part for all it's worth. And we talked about Roger. When he plays the Master, he plays that menace, and he you know, it's a real underperformance, but it's the right level of performance. The Marshal's the exact opposite, and he made it too caricature-y in the way that I think that the role was taken, and it becomes almost it is a bit pantomime-y almost towards the end for me. I don't see the menace, I don't see the madness in the Marshal. I just see an actor that's trying really hard with a really difficult script.
George Pravda as well, also not great in this. I mean, I'm not sure he's necessarily brilliant in Assassin or Enemy of the World either, but I think he's especially bad in this. And again, I mean, he's got a big part in this, so it doesn't help that that's not someone that it's just not good. The entertainment for me came from John's booth varying so much between different studio sessions and location and stuff. It doesn't look the same in two shots. I don't know whether this is the start of Casey telling him it's going a bit thin or something, but it's big, it's small, it's flat. His hair varies more than anyone else in this story. And the fact that I sat there and ended up just doing booth watch is possibly a bad sign that there wasn't much else to sort of go with here. James Atchison's doing the costume, isn't he? And so I love the mutt designs. He's dressed Katie really well in this. She looks gorgeous. So I think the costume, that's nice. It's a nice part of it. The set designs has been done so that it's angled. It's been angled into sort of triangles to make it look bigger, but it doesn't fool anyone. Skybase is no bigger than my drive. It's not a big place, is it?
And they try and add a little bit more depth to it by giving it height as well in that control room, where that means that actually what the actors have got to do is stand on a box behind the thing that seems to control the rocket launchers, because George Pravda is quite a small actor, so he's got a little box back there, which I found quite amusing. But I don't know. I think the sets of the Skybase are not that badly done. Interestingly, the crisscross design of that actually was a mold that was made for this story and ended up being used in just about every science fiction story thereafter. It turns up in so many other Doctor Who's and turns up in so many other sort of science fiction type series. So there's an interesting claim for fame that the Mutants does have.
Goodness for the Mutants. John Hollis, I think, is good. Again, John Hollis, I think, is slightly wasted in this because I like him in his Avengers appearances, sort of what I know him for. He's obviously Flash Gordon, Star Wars and stuff. I think he's a great actor, and then he's sort of wasted in a very strange part. And I also don't dig the directing. And I know, I mean, people shoot me down with this. It's Chris Barry, but you wouldn't believe this was directed by the same person who last year done The Demons. I'm not, it's not The Shining.
The relationship between Pertwee and Barry, though, wasn't particularly good, though, and it wasn't helped during this story because he didn't come back until after John had left.
But John hated Paul Bernard, though, and he made it through Day of the Daleks without it being awful, and subsequently, So I don't know whether that's because I think, from my understanding, I think Chris could maybe be a little bit difficult to get along with as an actor, from what I gather. But I don't think he's got the ambition. You look at how Michael handles the Sea Devils and how atmospheric and how creepy that's all done. This isn't. There's a lot. It's back to my complaint of safe directing. It's all in focus. It's all done, and you can't get away as well from the fact that you have some. I mean, you get disco lighting in the Chislehurst caves, don't you? It's very much a red light and a blue light and a green light and a red light and a blue light, and it feels like nobody's gone. Well, should we have it a bit murky? Should we have it this color? It doesn't. I don't dig that. And then he goes to that sort of awful CSO cave, which always jars badly with it all. No, I don't think Chris does a great job directing this. Actually, I don't think he helps it along.
And Katie's the only woman in it.
She is. And she's back again, having had Action Joe last week, where she was judo chop and saving the Doctor, rescuing them. This time she's very much, oh, here's your assistant tied up and we'll kill her if you don't do what we want, Doctor. It's all a bit kind of like, well, she's, aside from when she's like, oh, I'll go and give Kai the Amazon parcel, she doesn't get and like when Kai then wants to fight the monsters off, he's like, sit at the back of the cave, love, this is man's work. And she doesn't, I don't think it's very practically written as a strong part for a woman in this. And that's not me getting on a feminist soapbox or anything like that. But the fact that you've got one female character in it and she's not very well written for isn't good. And I don't know how this flopped through the Barry and Terence. I don't. Because their thought on this was to make a sort of anti-racist story, wasn't it? That was their hope with it.
But it got scaled back because originally this story was submitted for season 4, but was rejected. So it's been it sat on the shelf for quite some time. But you're right. They wanted it to be around, being an anti-racist message, and you were saying, Jason, about the sort of colonialism and some of the language that is used. But again, it's one of those things where you wouldn't necessarily sit and watch this and go, well, I get that message, and it's I think it's being almost wiped out of the story. And again, maybe it would be different if there was an element like that, if there was some sort of.
But again, I was going to say, sorry, I find, like I said at the top of this, I find some of the scenes in this a little bit uncomfortable. So the Marshal hunting the mutants down on the planet, and it's mad, and it feels, and just because they look different doesn't automatically make them the enemy. And that's one of the things that comes out in this story. And I feel that it does come across as, for me, just a little bit edgy from a point of view of, I am reading that whole sort of master-slave kind of approach thing coming out in this. And I think it's just not, I just don't think it's the best premise. And we go back to the casting of Cotton as well. And first off, why would you cast the actor in that way? Because I don't think that the part was written for a coloured actor in this particular instance, particularly as you call the character Cotton, and it just doesn't feel right. You change the character's name, or you do something. I mean, it was supposed to be a Cockney character, and Stubbs and Cotton were supposed to be sort of a couple of Cockney geezers. That was kind of how the thing was written, but it wasn't cast that way. So you make clumsy casting decisions like that. You make you give the story some almost I won't to use the word racist overtone, but there is some kind of a undertone in this that isn't particularly palatable. And I think it makes the story uncomfortable, and therefore I've always found it a slightly difficult watch for that reason.
But isn't the gist that the Marshal is the racist that wants to hunt the mutts down because he thinks they're the sporks, they're not perfect, they're not like him. So he is very much the bad guy. So I don't watch this feeling uncomfortable on that front, because I think the racist in this, the bad is the bad guy. It's Cotton and Stubbsy quite quickly come around to being on Doctor Who's side and saying, actually, this isn't right. He shouldn't be doing this. They shouldn't just be killing. So I don't feel uncomfortable on that front. I don't think it's clever enough to run as an analogy for either racism or colonialism. It doesn't feel clever enough or entertain. So it's neither clever as an analogy or entertaining. It's kind of, it doesn't hit either note, I don't think.
No.
And at the end, when Kai does become the Rainbow Pride man, I can't help feeling there's a little just a little whiff of sky there that might be Bob Baker and Dave Martin a couple of years later. I mean, they might just come back to that one. Yeah, as an ending, that's a bit kind of like, oh god. And he I will kill you, Marshall, and then disappear like a butterfly. It's just like, so they go from long-haired teenager to Ant-Man to Rainbow Pride Man. Yeah. Those are their three. It doesn't feel like it's a natural. Do you know what I mean? There are other stories where you know, maybe even like the Web House, where you have the sort of the dark and then the grubs above ground. There's you can see that there's a genetic.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense that he would turn into an Ant-Man to then turn back to what he looked like before, but with a big rainbow flag.
Yeah, it would have made more sense if they turned him into a mutt in the end to make him experience what the others had gone through. I just think that killing him off at the end with the rainbow light is kind of a cop-out.
It's also a very rushed ending as well in many respects.
It does feel like that.
You've had 5 3/4 episodes to get to this point. Then all of a sudden it's a swish of the rainbow ray there, and he's gone.
The rainbow whip? You're talking about Pride. It is like well, we've got to wrap things up, so let's kill him off. I just think there's lots of things about this story that are wrong, but to dispense a justice on him by making him the thing that he despises the most, I think would have been a more satisfying fate for the character rather than just being killed off. But
I just think it's a very hokey. Because Full Circle, which is essentially the same sort of scenario as we sort of said, is that you have the Marshmen that have evolved from the ant, the spiders. So the spiders become the Marshmen. The Marshmen become the Adrican clan. That makes sense that they've evolved. It's the kind of the Darwin thing. Is the apes, and you can see the progression. And I don't, unless I'm being incredibly stupid, and please tell me I am. I don't hear it enough. I don't. It just seems strange that he goes from being Garrick Hagan to Ant-Man to Garrick Hagan with a rainbow flag, and those are meant to.
There must be another one. There must be another stage because there's 4 seasons, so there must be another stage.
Maybe there's another 6-parter in this.
Please don't tell me there's another 6-parter in this.
On a positive, I love that. I like the monster design. So Jeff Cummins has a gorgeous Target artwork. I love the cover for the Target book. That's a.
You can always tell the quality of the episode by the Target cover was gorgeous.
Love the Target cover. I'm sort of, because I'm sort of forgetting what the Mutants was. Even as we speak, it's ebbing away out of my mind. Do we have any top facts on this?
Yes, we do. So, episode 6 is the last time that the Middle Eight is heard in the tune until Invasion of Time. There was supposed to be an additional subplot, which was all about cloning, but that one was removed. Originally, they were called months. So in the original script, they were called months, but that was swiftly changed because, Jason's evolving. I can see him evolving as we speak. He's gonna whip that off, and he'll be a mutt underneath.
That's rude. That's rude. You can't. I've turned into Kai. Look, I've turned into Rainbow Kai.
It's Rainbow Jason.
You didn't put the flag over his head, you silly old tart.
Well, I just wanted to, I'll end the recording with this on.
Just Just like these creatures, it took 500 years for him to evolve into that. And a curious little bit of trivia. Peter Capaldi, whilst this episode was being made, he actually wrote to Barry Letts. Barry Letts sent him scripts and set designs and everything from this episode, and that's what Peter Capaldi said spurred him on to becoming an actor. So there we go.
Peter didn't write him a letter saying #not my doctor, did he?
I saw
first known Doctor Who troll was Peter Capaldi.
So there we go. Yes.
Right. I do like the fact this was one of the last VHSs to come out. I wonder whether they were worried whether people would pay for a double pack, and they were like, wait, let's single tape them all. We'll just churn it out. Someone will have it.
Imagine if they sent this Woolies way as well. Crap, I would have done for them, wouldn't it?
Twin Dilemma and this as a double pack.
So let's get some scores on the doors for Doctor Who and the Mutants.
I'll let Rainbow Man go first.
All right, I'll make a start on this one then. So it is a big step down from the previous story, and not the standard that I think had been set through the early stages of this season. That said, though, you've still got brilliant performance from Jon and from Katy to keep you rolling through this story, but there's not an awful lot that you can say that's great about this one. I do love the design of the mutants. I agree with you, P-Bal, on that. I think they're actually, it's a terrific concept. And I think perhaps we didn't see enough of the actual mutant monsters themselves, even though we know they're not monsters, but we didn't see enough of them. It's a bit ploddy. It's a typically overlong 6-part that could have been a 4-part. And on that basis, I can't really give it much more than 3.
3 points. Come down.
Oh, yeah. This is not the worst story, but it is one that drags. And despite there being some interesting enough elements to it, overall the whole thing doesn't sit right. And I think the only reason why I got through all of it was because of the Marshal you just want him to get his comeuppance at the end, because he is just so toe-curlingly awful to everybody around him. The rest of the plots, you kind of forget about, like you say. It's difficult to care really for some of the other bits. So yeah, my score wasn't particularly high either. I was a little bit more generous than Jason, and I gave it a 4.
Wilson Jones, I think, doesn't do a dissimilar performance in The Smugglers, does he? It's a sort of maybe. Sometimes you get what you ask these people, don't you? No, I can't say I've got anything nice to say, but I haven't said much nice about the Mutants. So, Mutt design fine, Katy and Jon fine, but they're not together very much in there, so you don't even get much. You get a little bit of fun at the start and a little tiny bit at the end where they're together, and I think it's a misfire not having them together, and it's just turgid. I even forgot to say about the scenes on when they go back to the campsite, and there's it's Gordon Bennett. It's you know the bits where it goes back where the Baron goes back to and he has the conversation. And Jon Pertwee always thought that the opening was like Monty Python, didn't he?
It is. It is exactly like it.
So even the opening, that should be a chilling, you know, it should be full of. It does have a sort of slightly comedic to it. It's awful. It's not the worst Doctor Who story, but it can see it in the rankings. It's there. So I gave Doctor Who and the Mutants 2.
Ooh.
Yeah. When I'm bad. Which
It's quite a drop down, isn't it?
I don't know whether they put the out of office thing on the door and just left them to it. That brings Doctor Who and the Mutants in on 9 points.
Wow. That's
it's
quite low.
It's like it's part of season 20.
I would have won season 20.
It's our runner-up on season 21. It's the Mutants. Yay! Okay, so currently 4th place is the Mutants on 9 points. 3rd place, Day of the Daleks on 24. 2nd place, Curse of Paladin 26.5. And our season leader with 30 points is the Sea Devils.
Oh dear. Don't go down.
Right, well, thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
A pleasure as always.
Oh, he's flapping his flag.
He's waving his flag in case anyone at home hadn't realised he's an old homo. In case the clues hadn't been strong enough, he's now got a rainbow flag, just to let you all know.
I am a veil of secrecy.
He'll be dressed as David Thomas in the next episode.
I thought he was going to say I'm available when he pulled the thing across. It's going to be like one of those terrible chat lines. The number's going to come up in the corner. We'll put his phone number up. If anyone wants to, it'll come up.
He'll be
It's fine.
dancing like this. Oh, wait, no.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you. We shall return. So like us, notify, subscribe to us, write comments, and do all that stuff. And they'll respond. I might put an emoji.